Welcome to the Small Talk Podcast, the Smallegan Real Estate Team podcast. I'm your host, Mike Smallegan. Today, I'm joined by Rachael Plantinga, a teacher in the Grand Rapids system. Rachael is a few years into her teaching career, and we're thrilled to have her on the show today. So welcome, and we want to hear about your experiences.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I love being a teacher and talking about it, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, cool. So tell me about your teaching career in education. So, like, how long have you been a teacher? Where are you a teacher at? And where did you learn to be a teacher?
Yeah, so this is my 5th year being a teacher.
Okay.
So we had about a year and a half of the COVID craziness, and I'm full-time now at one school, but I've been at 3 different schools in the district. So I went to Calvin College for my undergrad.
Yeah.
I just graduated this past summer for my with my master's from Michigan State University.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Feels good to be done. And I grew up in Hudsonville, and I went through the Hudsonville Christian and Unity Christian school system. Yeah.
So what subjects do you teach?
I teach middle school orchestra, 5th through 8th grade. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of intonation issues and some squeakiness, but we have a lot of fun and just try to make it a positive experience for the kids. So yeah, it's great to watch them grow up from little baby 5th graders through 8th graders. And
so you're 5th to 8th grade?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So Bailey Budnick on our team actually teaches, I believe, younger kids orchestra and band.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, I hear a lot about it. And,
Yep.
I totally respect what you do.
Oh,
and
thanks.
Just 5th graders, I think that's when they start kind of talking back.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So tell me about your background. Like, how do you decide teaching was the right thing for you?
Sure. Yeah. I grew up loving music. So my parents graciously and generously enrolled me in piano lessons all the way from 2nd grade through 12th grade. And then I just kind of kept adding on things throughout my career. So in 4th grade, I added the viola, and I also loved that. And so I stuck with that through college. And then in middle school, I think I also want to try choir. And so I joined a choir, and I was in choir through middle school and high school and through college. And so I just kept picking up different musical contexts.
Yeah.
And had some identity crisis when it came to sort of what I wanted to pursue a career in, if I wanted to do piano, if I wanted to be a choir teacher or an orchestra teacher. And I actually was both for a while, and then have finally settled in orchestra. So I've also really enjoyed being with kids. I used to nanny in high school, and I worked at Spring Hill Camp in Everett, Michigan in the summers in college.
Oh,
and so it just seemed
up on US 10.
Up on US 10, yep.
Yeah, I drive through Everett quite often. So going up to Mackinac, it's a pretty route. So I like Everett. So.
It definitely is. Yeah. So, and music education seemed like the best blending of the two.
Sure.
So.
What's the earliest time that you remember, like, teaching somebody, like, before you were a teacher? Do you remember, like, helping someone else learn how to play an instrument, maybe someone in your class or a friend of yours?
I'm the oldest of 4 kids.
Okay.
So there was a lot of talk about oldest daughters becoming teachers.
Yeah.
But I remember teaching my younger sister how to knit and kind of forcing her to be in a knitting club with me.
Okay.
And so I just really enjoyed teaching people things and, seeing that look of, aha, when they got it, and the sort of satisfaction on their faces. So I always also enjoyed teaching kids games at Spring Hill and just being goofy and messing around. So yeah, I think I didn't realize that I totally wanted to be a teacher until college, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was more of a logical decision of these are my interests and I think my skill set, so this might be a good career for me. Yeah.
So what are the things that you kind of struggle with as a teacher?
Yeah.
Like, what are your least favorite parts?
Well, that's a good question. I really do not like the paperwork that comes with being a teacher. Just today I submitted my field trip packets for a festival, and they're about 20 pages long with applications and standards and signatures and multiple lists. So the paperwork, I think, is the toughest part of being a teacher for me because it's the farthest removed from interactions with the kids. And it's a lot of time-consuming things. But yeah, but there aren't that many things that I dislike about it.
Well, that's good. That's good. The paperwork and grading, and
Yep.
I think that's what I think of as being a teacher, and then you think about the fun parts too. So that's good that you have that perspective. So tell me about like a memorable time in your teaching career, like where you really felt like you had an impact, or maybe just something that stuck in your head.
Sure. Through COVID, as an orchestra teacher, I tried my very hardest to still have kids be able to hold instruments in their hands.
Yeah.
And since they weren't allowed in the building, I would go around and fill up my car with instruments and go around to all my students' houses and drop them off an instrument. And
That's awesome. That's dedication.
it was it was really fun to see where they live too, because
Yeah.
you know, when you're a kid too, you would just think your teacher lives in school, and
Yep.
it's really weird to see them outside of school. And it was really meaningful to see their families in their houses. And this was in the middle of COVID, where they had very little social interaction with with other students. And I remember getting to one student's house, and my student and 6 younger siblings all came out of the house and gave me a hug, and I was a little overwhelmed, but it just warmed my heart because I missed them too over COVID, and it was so nice to see their face and to meet their family. And we didn't even speak the same language with this student, but it was just nice to meet them and their younger siblings. And since then, their younger siblings have also come up through my program and will remember, I
That
remember
time.
meeting you
Yeah.
at my house that one time. So yeah, so it was fun to make that connection with them during COVID.
I think there's definitely things from my education growing up and interactions that I had with teachers that I still remember. And you don't realize that all the time when, you're interacting with kids, how big of an impact or part you're playing on that point in their life, right?
Yeah, right.
So, so through COVID, did you still like get on Zoom and practice instruments and everybody in different places?
We did. We tried our best. Still, I think students are trying to overcome the sort of self-consciousness. They felt the masks became sort of a comfort, I think, for them.
Sure.
So there were a lot of cameras off. As much as we tried to have cameras on, there were a lot of cameras off, and a lot of muted students, which was really hard in a music class because you can't listen to what they sound like and help them get better. So we did a lot of record yourself playing this, or take a picture of your bow hold, or create a song using this platform or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, it was tough. It was a lot of loneliness, just me in my apartment asking, please turn on your camera.
Turn it on.
I miss your face.
I want to hear you.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So, what other subjects do you teach besides band and orchestra?
Orchestra is the only subject I teach, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to do some music theory in my classroom so that students aren't playing the whole hour.
Sure.
Especially when they're little 5th graders or 6th graders with their scrawny arms and a big heavy instrument. It's hard for them to build up the strength to play for a whole hour. So we do some fun games, or use different platforms to create songs, or do some listening assignments.
Okay.
So
what's the biggest instrument that a 5th grader has to play?
I have a 5th grader playing the double bass.
Okay.
And it's taller than them.
And how much does that thing weigh?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe 30 pounds?
Okay. 5th
guess.
graders are probably what, like 60, 70 pounds?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Nice. So tell me how like technology has impacted you teaching and how you use it in the classroom.
Sure. I think COVID made us rely on technology in a much more dependent sort of way.
Sure.
And there have been really great technologies that have stuck around. I think some technologies did stick around after COVID and some of them did not. So the ones that have stuck around for us are Schoology. Now we use Schoology, which is kind of a upgraded Google Classroom sort of thing, where there's different folders and different ways of submitting assignments, and you can also connect your Schoology account to other platforms, so that if they're doing an assignment on another platform, submitting it on that platform will also submit it in Schoology, and it will also automatically grade things for you, so that when you grade it, it goes in the grade book.
That might solve
right
your
there.
paperwork problem.
It might solve my paperwork problem. That's
Right.
a good point.
So yeah, that's awesome. So are you still using Zoom or like a camera video conferencing software like any other ways?
Not in my classroom. I think other teachers do have Zoom for math help or science help. But some of my students don't have internet, so it can also be a little bit
Sure.
challenging to do that. So
Totally get that. So it's some technology is important, and not everybody has that privilege. So
Right.
that's yeah. So how do you ensure that all your students are engaged in understanding the materials as you kind of go along?
That's a
So
good
everybody's at different levels, right?
Right. Yes, that's for sure. And it can also be challenging because I'll get in my district, we have a lot of student turnover. So
Mhm.
I've gotten new students halfway through the year when we've already learned how to hold the instrument and the different notes. So it can be challenging to make sure that all students are engaged. But I've found that if you scaffold really well and do some engaging warm-up that everyone can do, if it's just me singing a few notes and then playing back to me, or doing some repeat after me exercises with the bow, engages students really well. And this week I started composing songs for them at the beginning, so I'll just sing a repeated note like E, E, D, E for the basses to play, and then
Yeah.
layer it on top. And they can suggest different notes too. They've really enjoyed that, so that's kind of fun. It's really easy to tell if they're engaged in orchestra because either they're playing or they're not playing.
Or they're pretending to play
Right.
like I used to do.
Right. Or they're staring really intensely at the back of their stand, and they have their phone out behind it. So it's a little bit easy to tell if they're engaged. But to encourage them, I found out that the songs I pick are really important. So if I pick songs that they don't want to play, then they don't play.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the year, I try to pick out the most exciting songs that I can think of, and then have them fill out and vote on which songs they liked and which songs they didn't like. And then I use that as a carrot at the end of the year. We're going to festival this year, and there's a list I have to pick off of. And so we're still dangling that carrot of at the spring concert, we'll get to play the songs that you picked and are excited about. So
you mainly have fifth graders, right?
I have actually mostly 7th and 8th graders.
So 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah.
On average, would you say the 7th and 8th graders have how many years of experience playing the instruments that they're playing?
That's a good
Like,
question.
did they start like in 3rd grade, or did most of them kind of starting when they meet with you?
A very select few of them start in 5th grade. I have this relationship with the 5th grade teachers where I'll pull some 5th graders out of their class 2 times a week, and the teachers will send the kids that are on top of their schoolwork, that are responsible, to me. And so if I can hook them on orchestra in 5th grade, they'll join again in 6th grade. And so they'll be able to start a whole year ahead.
Okay.
So, and then if they didn't get the opportunity to play in 5th grade, or they came from a different school, they can start with me in 6th grade. So 6th grade is mostly my beginning group. But then if they get to 8th grade and they played with me in 5th grade, that will be 4 years that they've been with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. What about like experience with instruments? Do they have experience before orchestra typically, or
It
is that their
depends.
first like interaction with the instruments that they're playing?
Yeah, it depends on which school they went to. Some schools, like G.R. Ford or Congress Elementary, have orchestra-based general music classrooms.
Okay.
So they have violins that are really cute, like 1/8 size,
Yeah.
that the little kindergartners and first graders can use. So if they went through a school, either Congress or Ford, they'll have come to me with a few years. But I think I have 2 of those students
Okay.
out of 100. So it kind of depends on what school they come from. But my top group generally has 1 to 4 years of experience.
Okay.
So most of my students speak a language other than English as their primary language. And I have learned so much through that. And also I find it really beautiful. We have students come into the school from a lot of different places, and also they come in the middle of the year or in October or in April sometimes, and it seems like no matter where a student is from, they always can find people like them in the school and can make friends really easily. So there's a really beautiful community that we have at the school, and it seems like kids get along great, and they get along with people of other races other than themselves, and yeah, it's just a great place to be.
Yeah. It sounds like it. So would you say like music? Because I like just kind of thinking as you were talking there, like you don't need to speak a certain language to play an instrument, right? So like I would think that that's a way that people can kind of come together in a way that isn't based on their language, right?
Yeah.
Like they're going to connect and play music together, and that just seems kind of special too.
Right. Yeah. In other classes, language can be more of a barrier, I think, than it is in my class, because we're doing something that doesn't need language to be expressed, and you can also learn through mimicking or learn through seeing my fingers. So my subject lends itself really well to people who speak a lot of different languages, and even kids who don't speak English can thrive in my class, which is awesome.
Yeah, kids are super quick learners typically.
They are. Yes.
So, what outside things do you do outside of teaching? What extracurricular things or volunteer things do you do in your community?
Yeah. I am part of the Calvin Community Symphony, so I like to keep up my viola chops by playing in the symphony. Otherwise, I get really good at Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and I get really good at the beginning orchestra songs, but I need something to satisfy my musical soul a little bit.
Okay.
Yep. So, and I learned first year of teaching that I really needed to exercise and to run in order to be a happy teacher.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it can be really hard for me to get done with a really tiring day, being peppered with questions and on my feet all day. And then I just need some movement to help me process and think through what I said and what I should have said differently. And, oh, I didn't notice about this student. I wonder if they're doing okay, or how could I help this student through this thing?
Yeah.
So running has helped become a form of therapy for me, for sure.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have some teacher friends that are big time runners. Trenthams. Do you know any Trenthams?
I don't.
Okay. They're both teachers and both big time runners. She just posted pictures of her running in a marathon and doing really well. So,
that's awesome.
How has Grand Rapids Public Schools changed since you first started teaching 5 years ago? So before COVID and now, like, what would be one of the biggest differences?
Yeah. I really have a lot of respect for our new superintendent. Whenever an issue happens at a school, she is very prompt to put together a community meeting and have people share their voices. So I've seen that be a big change. I've also seen a lot of progress in making things accessible through translation services.
Super important.
Yeah, we have a great relationship with a company called InterpreTalk. So at any time I can call them with any language I need and speak to a parent in their language, and that's been really helpful. Also, all of like the forms, referral forms, or forms for field trips or permission slips are in all the languages that we would need them to be.
Okay.
So that's been awesome. And I think there's a lot of financial decisions being made at the moment about which schools are going to stay open and which schools should be consolidated. So I think that's a really positive change happening in the district too.
Yeah, that's just to keep our schools updated and modern, giving our kids the best that we can, right?
Right, for sure.
Getting off school, what's like something about Grand Rapids that you really like? Like, why do you like living or being in the Grand Rapids area? Because for me, like, Grand Rapids is pretty special. I wouldn't go anywhere else. But I like to hear what other people like about the city they live in.
Right. One thing I like about Grand Rapids is the food scene.
I hear that a lot.
There is so much good food in Grand Rapids, and there's so many different places to go.
Yeah.
Like, there's authentic Mexican and authentic Ethiopian food, and
on Wealthy Street.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't think of what it's called.
I can't either, but it's good.
I can picture it's a very distinctive building. But yeah, I love the food scene in Grand Rapids. I love the beer scene in Grand Rapids too. My husband and I like to go to different breweries, and Founders is our favorite, but that's pretty popular place. So
Yeah.
I also love that there's a variety of like landforms around. There's a dune on Proven Trails, which is kind of behind Robinette's. So
There's this
it's like
a dune. Okay.
yeah, it's a random sand dune that you can find kind of in a subdivision. There's like a big hiking trail and system of trails around there.
Really?
So yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that one.
Yeah.
So
It's fun. It's a good place.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I love to run the marathon or the races that they have in Grand Rapids.
Okay.
So I've run the riverbank a few times, which is just beautiful to go through the downtown and along the Grand River and back through Millennium Park. And it's just so cool to see the different diversity in Grand Rapids. So
Yeah. So let's say you have somebody coming in from out of town and this is their first time in Grand Rapids. What's one thing that you would say they have to do?
Ooh. I would probably say if you have never been to Grand Rapids, you have to drive that spot of 196 by Lane Avenue going eastbound where it comes over the hill.
All right.
And there's this beautiful shot of Grand Rapids where you can see all the buildings and the river. And if you go at sunset, it's just the most beautiful sight, I think, in all of Grand Rapids.
I totally know the spot, but give you another tip here. So actually, if you get off the Lake Michigan Drive exit, then go down Bridge Street, there's a street called Sunset.
No way.
That gets you on top of that hill so you can see the same view of the city, but behind the highway on a hill. It's even better.
That is so cool. I'm going to have to do that.
It's a popular spot for fireworks. So it's at the end of a dead-end street on the west side. It's a really cool street. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
cool.
Tell me a little bit about your family and like close friends. Do you have a lot of teacher friends?
Yes, I have a lot of teacher friends that I don't think I would make it through without them. Yeah. I was really lucky when I first started teaching that there was about 5 of us who were also starting out with our first year of teaching as music teachers.
Oh,
and so we got really close. We have our own Instagram page called the Alto Couch because we sing in a group called Staff Notes through Grand Rapids Public together.
Okay.
So we
So is that like a band?
No, we just when we record, there's this couch that we all sit on, and so we call ourselves the Alto Couch. It's our Staff Notes is a musical group made of different GRPS teachers or staff. And we sing at different events in GRPS. We were on Wood TV8 over this past December, and we usually do some holiday things. I think we have a Black History concert coming up at the Listening Room in April, so that'll be fun. So I've made a lot of good teacher friends that way. I keep in contact with a few people from college, which have been good, who they have become music teachers in the area. And I'm also really lucky that my family is all close by in Grand Rapids or Hudsonville. So that is also one part of why I wanted to be in Grand Rapids, to be close to family. All of my siblings live around, and all my in-laws and cousins and everything. So it's really nice to have family close by.
Yeah. So you're married. Mm-hmm. So how do you keep a balance between your professional life and still spending time with your family and your friends and just keeping a good, healthy balance?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've definitely gotten better at balancing school and family as I've gotten to be a teacher. I think when you first start out, it's all you can think about, and it can be really overwhelming. And as you get more seasoned, I think you realize that you can't do everything. I can't always grade everything on time, and I can't always have an immaculate lesson planned and call all of the parents and talk to all my administration, and I'll get all the paperwork in all the time. So I think one thing that's made it easier to balance is prioritizing different things, and also having some kind of routine that helps me shut my school brain off when I get home, even if it's leaving my work computer at work and only taking it home when I need to, or setting one day of the week where I stay late and get all my grading done. It's also been helpful to meet a friend at a coffee shop for a while and, we're going to get our grades done for 2 hours and then we'll go home.
Yeah.
And I've also found it's really helpful to plan things with my family or with my husband. Because if something's on the calendar and it's a plan, then nothing creeps in and takes up the time.
I have the same thing, right? Like
Yep.
I put family stuff on my calendar and I put work stuff on my calendar and just try to hold that space as sacred or can't
Right.
move it, right? So
Right.
just make sure you have time for it. And you don't think about that as a student, right? Because your teacher is there when you're there, and then somehow magically the lesson plans get created and
Yep.
the papers get graded, and they're having to do that in the off time, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so that's it's an impressive feat that you balance all of that. So
I'm not always good at it. I also need to be really diligent about using my prep time as prep time and I need a break, so I'll take out my phone time. I need to be diligent about using my prep time very wisely and making a to-do list and crossing things off incrementally. And then there's less to do after school.
Sure. So what's one fun fact that most people wouldn't know about you?
One fun fact is that if you play me a song I've never heard before, I can probably play it on the piano at least somewhat decently.
Well, I've seen that on TikTok and they get a lot of views. So
I know I should try that.
yeah, you might want to add that to your staff notes
Right?
Instagram.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, besides running and doing the staff notes teacher band, what other things do you like to do in your free time?
Yeah. I just adopted 2 cats with my
Okay.
husband.
Yeah, what are their names?
We have Neville,
Okay.
who's about 2 years old, and Nori, who's a few months old.
Is that a Harry Potter thing, the Neville thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Neville is Harry Potter. Nori is based on my love for sushi.
Okay.
So Nori, I think, is a word for seaweed that they wrap the sushi in. So
I learned something today. Okay.
Yep.
So-
And they like to cuddle together. When we adopted them, they were, they're not dad and son, but they have a very father-son relationship. And Neville had sort of gone over to Nori and taken him by the scruff and claimed him and started grooming him. And we were only planning on getting 1 cat, but we just thought we could not separate them, and they were so sweet, so we brought them both home. And
Wow.
yeah, they're a lot of fun to play with and also help with some of the stress.
So can you share a piece of advice you would give somebody just starting out their career as a teacher, or thinking about becoming a teacher?
I think my biggest piece of advice for someone thinking about being a teacher is to do it. On TikTok and social media, there's a lot of scary things being said about the teaching career and how hard it is and how unmanageable it is. And there are some really hard things about being a teacher. It's hard to balance it, and sometimes the weight of trauma that happens to students can rub off on you, and it can be really challenging. And there is there's validity to that, and sometimes it can feel like there's a lot of burden placed on teachers, but it is one of the most meaningful jobs I think someone can do. It's really meaningful to be that rock for a student every day, to see them every day, and to be a source of positivity in their life. So I would encourage them to do it. There will always be a need for teachers, and there will always be a space for teaching. And it will be harder at first, but surround yourself with people you trust and who will take care of you. Surround yourself with people who can come into your classroom and give you tips, and know that it's not going to be perfect right away, but you can do it. And the kids need you, and it's a meaningful job. So I would encourage anyone to do it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. So is there anything that you wish I would have asked that I didn't ask?
Can you ask me a question about some of the funny things kids say to you?
So, wow, I can only imagine the things that you would hear. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are some of the things?
Yeah. I'm always surprised at the things that will come out of kids' mouths. One day I had a very large lunch, and I had a student ask me, "Miss, are you pregnant or are you just bloated?"
Oh boy.
And they'll ask you questions that really make you think. Like, one student asked me, "Miss, do you think you're pretty?" And I was thrown off guard, and I said something like, I think there are things about myself that I would change if I could, like my chin is too short and my forehead is too big. And she said, well, yeah, that's true, but you know, you have good eyebrows and you have nice lips. And they just say the funniest things. So I'm never bored at my job. And that is one of the things that I like about it. You gotta have
thick skin, huh?
You definitely have to have thick skin. Yeah.
Okay.
But it can be hilarious if you can laugh about yourself.
Yes, for sure. Yes. Kids don't always have a filter. I've definitely been there before.
That's for sure.
So,
yep.
So I really appreciate you, and it's definitely clear that you have passion for teaching and helping kids and supporting your community. And thanks so much for coming in today and sharing your story with us, or a little bit of your story.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I love talking about teaching, and if anyone's listening and has an extra cello or violin or viola in their basement that's not being used, let me know, and I'd love to take it off your hands and give it a good life.
How would they find you?
You can email me, find me on Facebook. I'm on the social media, so
cool.
Yeah, you can find me there.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into the Small Talk podcast. Thank you, Rachael, for coming in and joining us today and sharing your experience as a teacher.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of the Small Talk podcast with the Smallegan Real Estate team. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our earlier episodes.